The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, this past week, marked its 50th anniversary. Many also state and government of the regional body converged on Lagos to join President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to rub minds and chart a pathway towards the immediate goals and challenges of the sub-region. To mark the milestone, 3 events were held: a symbolic reenactment and signing of the Lagos Declaration by the authority of ECOWAS of state and governments, in the presence of General Dr. Yakubu Gowon, the only surviving founding father, a commemorative ceremony, and a roundtable conference titled ECOWAS, an African Model at 50, Resilience and Future Prospects. Now for a quick look at the evolution of ECOWAS and current expectations from it in an ever-changing world. I'm now being joined here on This Day Live, the Sunday Talk Show, by Professor Femi Otubanjo, a research professor at Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. Great to have you here, Prof, and thank you for joining me on the show today. Well, Prof, 50 years.
Yes.
May 1975 to May 2025.
Yes.
How do you think ECOWAS has fared in terms of successes, failures, and challenges?
Well, I must say that it's been a fairly good story. At the time the ECOWAS was conceived and the Treaty of Lagos signed, West Africa was still under the clutches of neo-colonialism, first created by what I call the Berlin Conference of 1884-85. We were still a divided, fragmented region. In fact, the continent, as a result of the artificial boundaries, the linguistic, cultural, ethnic chaos created by these boundaries. In fact, it looked like we were doomed to be fractious forever. So it was really a revolutionary, radical move by, of all people, military generals to end that neo-colonial enslavement and create a new West Africa which bypasses all those negatives, all those colonial heritages that we inherited. So it was a very brave and robust idea. Since then, things have moved incrementally. That's what I call incremental integration. Generally, people want to see any institution mature very quickly. There's almost a supernatural psychology around us in which anything, even governments, we expect them to perform miracles. Miracles do not really occur very much in life. The ECOWAS has, over the years, created protocols that have aided the development of the region. One of the most important ones was the Protocol on Mutual Defense, which was used to create ECOMOG. Many people forget how important ECOMOG was. ECOMOG helped to stabilize, to restore the Liberian nation, to also stabilize Sierra Leone, to create some governance stability in Guinea-Bissau, to respond to terrorists, almost terrorist takeover of Mali. What you then find is that ECOWAS saved the region. In fact, there was almost going to be a domino effect in which if these rebels had succeeded in Liberia, they would have, in fact, been emboldened. Rebels everywhere would have been emboldened to try to overthrow government. And that's what's happened in Sierra Leone. The rebels in Liberia who encouraged the rebels in Sierra Leone. And if ECOMOG had not stopped them, it would have been a domino situation in which all the cards would have fallen in West Africa. So if that alone, in fact, that was a model for multilateral intervention. It was a model. It was after that that the NATO itself intervened in the problem in Serbia. It was the model of ECOMOG. ECOMOG, in fact, can be said to be the first to do peace enforcement rather than just peacekeeping, to impose itself and create a nation out of a fragmented entity. So ECOWAS has done very well. It's done well in terms of now talking about governance, talking about the protocol of zero tolerance for unconstitutional changes. That's what led to the quarrel with
Burkina Faso, Niger,
and Mali. And that shows, of course, that there's been progress. When Gowon and Yadema started facilitating ECOWAS, they were military people. Most of the people who signed that protocol, that Treaty of Lagos, were military people. But by the time they signed the protocol on Wednesday in Lagos, they were all civilians. So there's been a shift in terms of that intolerance for unconstitutional change of government. There's still a lot to be done, but yes.
Prof, okay. Let's talk about the failures.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The objective originally
Yes.
was about economic integration,
Yes.
regional integration, solidarity, cooperation, unity, and all of that, and to hold up West Africa as a standard for the rest of the world. But there have been serious failures. What they call community levies. Most of these other countries just don't pay. They rely on Nigeria to carry the whole of West Africa on his back.
Yes.
Okay, we talk about economic integration. The same Nigeria that pays most of the bills is discriminated against in Ghana, in Guinea. Our people can't even open shops in all of these places, making Nigeria look like we've been doing Father Christmas for ECOWAS forever, and also by extension for the African Union. And then when you talk about governance, you use the word governance. Now, the crisis we have is the retreat of the democratic framework in places like Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, and they have even pulled out. They've formed the Alliance of Sahel States. How serious is that failure? And what do you think is responsible for it? These same Francophone countries who dominate the secretariat of ECOWAS. I will come to that subject later about reform, what we need to do going forward, so that those who put down the money can benefit also.
Yes. Let me say that I don't believe that the word to use is failure. There have been challenges. Challenges, yes, that's the right word to use. If you want to put it in terms of failure, then it means that the United Nations has failed. Because
yes, I believe that the United Nations is not working.
So
it's in urgent need of reform.
In fact, I would like to think that from its short history, the ECOWAS has done a lot better than most other multilateral institutions. Let me say that, for example, I agree with you, Nigeria pays 40%. In spite of the popular tale, Nigeria is not the one carrying everything. Nigeria is paying only 40%, which is the biggest. In terms of when you have 12, 15 members, somebody carries 40%.
When we go and fight in Mali or in Liberia, we contribute more of the troops.
Yeah, that's why it would have been very foolish if we had gone into Niger to try to restore constitutional order, because the other country could have abandoned the project and left Nigeria alone to carry it. A country that not even produces the weapons, the bullets for its own troops, and we have to buy it and put an economy that's in trouble. In greater danger. But the reality is that ECOWAS, if you go to most West Africa, in fact, we just had a conference of ECOWAS at 50 at the National Nigerian Institute of
Technology. You created that with the Konrad Adenauer German Foundation.
And one paper that struck me and struck everybody there was that Nigeria needs ECOWAS, because most of their high streets, and you know what is happening in Nigeria. That's what is happening in Freetown, in Monrovia. Nigerians are taking over the retail trade in all those countries. And so Nigeria needs to keep ECOWAS so that expansion, in fact, that would have been the normal expansion portfolio of Nigeria using its enormous manpower, which is part of Tinubu's new foreign policy orthodoxy, which is talking about using demography, Nigeria's major population, to try to build Nigeria. Nigerians are doing well in West Africa, contrary to the impression. There is the protocol on free movement, protocol on free establishment of residences and businesses. It's working at the official level. Nigerians are not bad.
The Ghanaians raised issues.
Yeah, they do, because Nigerians also, of course you know yourself that Nigerians also misbehave abroad a lot. They put attention to themselves because of their criminalities. And no country is going to...
You are saying we Nigerians are criminals?
There's too many criminal behavior by Nigerians abroad. There are too many criminals by Nigerians in Nigeria. Criminal leaders, criminal traders.
They are still very decent people.
Yeah, they are decent. But what I'm saying, I'm not those that they interact. I was reading Amechi today that it was searched in Germany. That the image of Nigeria is that of a criminal country. Don't let us run away from that. What we want to do is to do something about it. But that does not mean that Nigerians are not doing well. They are doing well in Ghana. All the trade, all the high streets are taken over by Nigerians. And so...
and the Ghanaians don't like that.
Nobody likes it. Nobody likes the country, especially when those people... Look at what is happening, xenophobia in South Africa. Is it not because Nigerians take over the retail trade and begin to pay more to their women? And that created animosity. No,
Nigerians are very romantic.
Yeah,
I think the South Africans miss the point.
Yes,
on that score.
But you see,
Nigerians are.
South Africans were.
They are loved by women across the world.
South Africans were shortchanged in that in that balance. If you are giving transport money, taxi money to your girlfriend and everything, the other side don't give, the girls tend to migrate to those who give, and create enmity and alienation on the part of those who are the bona fide owners of the women. If your women are moving, you create... So all the xenophobia is not about economic competition, mostly about cultural, ethnic exchanges. I think Nigerians, the ECOWAS has done well to create the framework for free movement, free residence, free establishment of... whether it is used. In fact, Nigerians who travel say they still experience a lot of frustration with the border guards. They want the sick bribe, they harass people, and so on. But that has nothing to do with ECOWAS. ECOWAS cannot police. It can only create policies.
Okay, Prof.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Reform was a major issue.
Yes.
Earlier this year, the Gusso Institute,
yes,
established by General Aliyu Gusso,
yes,
had a session on ECOWAS.
Yes.
The NIA, you curated the conference that NIA had. There was also the event, Hope and Resilience thing, organized by the ECOWAS itself to mark the Treaty of Lagos. Now, the subtext of all of that talk is about reform. What critical areas of reform would you like to see?
Well, let me first say that ECOWAS is a combination of poor countries. That matters. We must recognize it. Because sometimes you tend to contrast them to EU or ASEAN. These are countries that already have established economy. These are prosperous countries. And in the case of EU, you cannot be a member unless you have met certain parameters of a balanced economy in which your human rights records are okay. Unfortunately, we started ECOWAS out of necessity. So it was all commerce. We didn't set up any rigid parameters. So we need to begin to now look at those parameters. It was interesting seeing Fore Wasingwe, the president of
Togo,
now president of Council of Ministers or something, has changed his sitting with Gowon. His father was the other major father of ECOWAS. But I was very, very pleased that he was not recognized. Because this is somebody who has been in power since 2005. He has been in power. His father was in power from 1967 to 2005, 38 years. He has taken over. So with the same family, he's ruling Togo for 58 years. Katara got himself a third term, and so on. So they have to look at that. They have to begin to address governance. And there are a lot of areas there are challenges. You are dealing with a poor continent, a poor sub-region. There's climate change. There is a youth board. You have young people everywhere who don't have jobs. Young people everywhere who don't have skills. And so what is ECOWAS going to do about it? They have to find a solution because the problem is not going to go away. And you have terrorism, which is partially a result of these unemployed youths who are easily attracted to the easy life of a terrorist. They are ready they enjoy for a short period even if they are going to die. So there are areas you must address governance, which is the fundamental, it is substructure of everything. If governance is bad, then everything will fall apart. And that's what we find in our own system here. If governance is not working, nothing else will work. That's why we do not have pipe-borne water in our houses, we don't have electricity regularly, we don't have good roads, we have potholes everywhere, and so on. So ECOWAS has to address governance. Of course, the economy is a function of national inputs. If a nation's economy is not doing well, there's nothing ECOWAS can do about it. That's why they are not even paying their levies. So, and you also have the problem, unfortunately, that Nigeria that could have played an hegemonic role, that could have put its standard down, is also collapsing. Its economy collapsed over the years. And its security also created problems. So that today, Nigeria is not even in a position to be a leader.
No.
Yes.
The ECOWAS at 50 coincides with Tinubu's midterm period.
Yes.
And the Tinubu administration has been saying, look, in the last 2 years, that the Tinubu administration has rescued the Nigerian economy.
Yes.
There's a lot still more to be done,
yes.
but that, the administration will take Nigeria to the promised land. I mean, we have paid off the debts, the money we borrowed during COVID-19, even if we're planning to borrow more. We have, increased foreign direct investment. We have, positively, Moody has just upgraded the grading. Yes. So you say Nigeria's economy is not doing well.
It's really...
Is that a foreign policy?
The problem is that Tinubu has moved on from the edge of the precipice. That's all he's saying. Nobody is saying that the economy has so rebounded that we can take out the drums. But I don't want to be, I didn't come here to discuss it, but what I'm saying is that if you know where it started from and where we are, if we had not introduced those both policies, we would all have, the banking system would have collapsed, we would all have been living out of garbage dumps. So I think what is celebrating that the rot has stopped. And we are beginning to, it's like somebody falls into a well and you rescue him, from that well. It does not mean that you have solved all these problems. When Nigeria was in a bad shape, the last government was a disaster. We always put things side by side. I always use the analogy of a surgeon. When a surgeon discovers that you have something, a cancerous growth or something, and cuts it off, and you suffer pain, do you blame the surgeon or the source of the pain? The surgeon has come to solve a problem, and I see Tinubu in that mode.
Okay, you mentioned General Gowon. General Gowon is the only surviving founding father of ECOWAS. And he was at that ECOWAS at 50 event.
Yes.
And he was talking about hope. That is very optimistic.
Yes.
That the ideals of the founding fathers would survive. And he was saying that he also believes that the alliance of Sahel states, the countries that form that alliance, would in the future return to ECOWAS. And that the hope of unity, cooperation, integration within the West African sub-region will not die. Do you think he was just speaking as a statesman, or he's talking about a possibility about the future of ECOWAS?
Yes.
In other words, is ECOWAS at 50 the beginning of an end, or the end of a beginning? In other words.
No. I think you are rather take the former. It's the beginning. It's not the end of a beginning. Let me say that what else can go on say but to be hopeful? What else? Well, as they say, tell us, when there's life, there's hope. We must all be hopeful that ECOWAS will do. The AES countries are likely to come back if ECOWAS becomes prosperous. If they are shut out of this ECOWAS free days, free movement, and so on, they will. We also think that when they return to democracy, maybe a civilian government will see things differently. We will see the people-to-people aspect rather than government. What we are doing now is government to government. It's governments quarreling among themselves. The people don't quarrel. Niger is 60% Hausa. They are not quarreling with the Hausas of Nigeria. It is the small elite, the military junta, that is quarreling with us. So there's always hope. But all these ECOWAS states must get their houses in order. Nigeria must be the one to lead economic revival in West Africa by managing its own resources prudently. We have frittered our opportunities in the past. We have had 60 years of waste. Somebody has to stop that. Something has to stop that. So that we can be the leader of a sub-region that's had immense potentials, immense resources, that could be one of the leading areas of the world in terms of wealth and prosperity. But we have just frittered other opportunities. So we have hope. The one is correct to have hope. But of course, that hope has to be worked on.
Okay, Prof, as we begin to wrap up.
Yes.
Now, how will you rate ECOWAS against other regional economic organizations in Africa, for example? COMESA, ECAS, EECAC, COMESA, AMU, that's the Arab Maghreb Union, SADC. These are also economic regional organizations. You have said we should not compare with EU and... okay, but in Africa, how do you rate ECOWAS in comparison with these other groups? You
have to distinguish rate in what area. It must be not, it cannot be absolute. That will be political, management of conflict, economic integration. Those are, you have to identify those parameters.
I just want you to isolate the
it is not,
if
you times, there's no absolute comparison that you can do. In terms of conflict resolution, and ECOWAS has done very well. The ECOMOG remains a model of peace management and peace enforcement. In terms of economic integration, we have not done well as CES or SADC, or, but we have done better than most of them in terms of managing conflicts. So ECOWAS has done well. ECOWAS has peculiar challenges. We have desertification. And those three countries that left, if you look at the index of poverty, they are among the poorest countries of the world.
Sahel region.
Yeah, Sahel region. So we are dealing with, first we have to deal with the problem of poverty, and the climate change is imposing the desert on us, and the desert is ruining livelihoods and creating poverty. So the ECOWAS has a huge problem of uncertainty, unpredictability of governance, where they didn't plan that we will have 4 countries in West Africa that have military rule, just in the last 2 years. So it's a sub-region that is very volatile. We see how we are still the epicenter of extreme jihadism in the world. We are still fighting that. A lot of resources that should go into development are going into dealing with terrorism and all forms of violence. So really, the ECOWAS can do well, but the challenges are enormous.
Okay, Prof, last question. How do you see the future of ECOWAS?
Well, I'm not a futurologist, I'm not a prophet, but I hope that if we have survived the past was very rough and turbulent, military coups, violence, and so on, civil wars, and so on. We survive all that. My hope is that we will not have that kind of scenario in the next 50 years, that we will be building on the peace that we have achieved in the sub-region. We'll be building on the awareness that we need to do something. There's greater awareness. Although, unfortunately, people are still welcoming military coups that they did in those 3 countries because of poor governance. We must focus on governance.
And also because of the suffocating role of France.
Yes, France. Yes, France. Exactly. We need to remove that neo-colonial bondage. We need to do better governance. Governance is the key. If you don't govern the people well, they will welcome the devil if it comes to rule them. So we need governance that is responsible, that is transparent, that is honest. We in this country, we are living on borrowed times. If we continue the way we are, we cannot continue like that and expect to get better results. So just like other countries in West Africa, I've seen that governance is the key to stability and economic development.
Well, on that note, I would like to thank you very much, Professor Femi Otubanjo, for joining us on This Day Live, this Sunday Talk Show.